your eyes, I invite you to call back all that energy, all that attention that you've been sending out into the world, all the things that you've been looking at, examining, trying to make sense of, caring about, considering, worrying about, all of that energy. Imagine that that energy is just like, woof, coming right back towards you. Sometimes I like to picture it as like a nice golden light. You can picture it as whatever color was most satiating for you or what calls to you in this moment. And as we do this, trusting your intuition right there, that was your first invitation to trust your intuition, that you would know the color that would most serve you in this moment. As you call back your energy. And as you do that, I invite you into a nice deep breath. Not this yogic forced breath, but just a nice, luxurious, taking in, filling your being, your body, with the oxygen that nourishes it. And exhaling gently, not forcibly, just gently giving back. And I invite you into this again, just breathing in with this intention to receive. Receiving the gifts that are here for you. Receiving this time that you carved out in your life. And as you're full, when you're totally full again, coming into that place of giving back, just gently exhaling, not forcing it, just knowing that what you're going to give back will be received. And as you come to this place, you might also just want to check into your alignment. I'm going to talk a lot about that today. So just noticing where you are, how you are positioned, it's going to tell you everything about how you're meeting the world right now. Are you sitting erect? Are you slumped? Are you leaning forward, backwards? Before you judge it or take time to change it, this is an invitation to just really notice, without story, without judgment, just that gentle, caring consideration of wonder. Oh, what is my body telling me that my brain can't quite see when it's so busy? About how I'm meeting this moment in life. And now as you've really put some attention to really feeling it, you might start to feel something that might be out of alignment. You might be called to do what feels like alignment in your body. So as you breathe, you might feel the inclination to have some space for some more breaths. You might feel like lifting your core muscles, straightening that spine, almost imagining as if there's something on the very tip of your head, like that's pulling you up. So without much effort, again, just like, ah. And when that happens, what happens to your chest? Do you desire to roll back your shoulders? For some of you, that might feel really good to roll back your shoulders. You might be like, oh gosh. For some of you, that might actually be too open in your heart space. And there's no right or wrong. It's like, what is feeling good in your body today? Now, some of you might feel called to make sure that both feet are on the earth or the floor. Some of you might be called to put your feet into a cross-legged position. Again, what's feeling good in your body today? So I'm going to come to you with a couple of questions as you're tuning into your body self. And these questions, the questions. What is your relationship to the creative process? What is your relationship to the creative process? And just allowing whatever wants to emerge. You might be saying, I don't have a relationship with the creative process, or you might be like, I have a very committed relationship, or I have a joyful, or I have a guilty, or whatever comes up for you. How aware are you of the internal stories that influence the stories that you create about the outer world? I think for so many of us, there's been such a lifting of the veils recently, where more and more and more layers are being revealed about how we see the world and why. So what are you able to see that you weren't able to see before? You have a story inside you that's ready to emerge. Is there something inside your beingness that called you here today and it's like, oh, I'm ready to come out? Or is the muse tapping on your shoulder, striking you with inspiration, whispering to you about the stories of our time? So I'm going to read you a quote. We think we tell stories, but stories often tell us. They tell us to love or hate, to see or be seen, and often, too often, stories saddle us and they ride us and they whip us onward and they tell us what to do. And we do it without listening, or without questioning. The task of learning to be free requires learning to hear them, to question them, to pause and hear silence, to name them, and then become a storyteller. That quote is by Rebecca Solnit. I like to begin these webinars with that quote because it really speaks to the progression of what it is to be a conscious creator. We're going to be talking about that today. What is it to be so conscious of what you're creating, understanding the full power of what you do and what you say can influence and change the world around you. So as we do that, it's like, oh, what is Rebecca saying? If you aren't familiar with her work, she is a hot rod of a journalist, who is really speaking truth to power, is as aggressively and assertively calling out those systems and structures that aren't in support of, good for all beings. And, I appreciate her guidance. She's saying, before you call out the story, before you claim yourself a storyteller, first, go to ground zero and understand what it is to understand the stories and how they're already impacting and influencing how you see the world. And so I think that's just good wisdom. We'll talk more about that. And then the other quote that I just love to begin with is, the business of stories is not enchantment. And the business of stories is not escape. The business of stories is waking up. That's by Martin Shaw. And I love that quote too, because, what is he whispering to? But again, it's like the evolutionary process of the storyteller on our planet. That we used to have a romanticized, vision of storytellers going from village to village. They were the history keepers. They were making sure that we didn't forget, that we could stand on each other's shoulders and learn from our past and from our cohorts or allies or, other people. And then it kind of got enchanted, right? There became this time where stories were used against us, I would say, in certain ways. And then it's like, and then they're also used as a form of escape. Like, oh, I don't like this reality. Let's get out. I know I've done that many times, and I'm really appreciative for it. But he's saying that the stories, he's hinting that stories have also another opportunity, that they have a gift to give us. And it's maybe not escape, but it's actually into being able to see the world in a way that we never could have before. So here's what we're going to play at. So I see that there's a lot of you who've been with me before. And so you've seen my webinar and blah, blah, blah. And this is a little bit different. This one is, hold on, I want to share my screen with you because we're doing a new webinar. So, dun, 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 dun. Pardon me, go into the technology. Okay. So what we're going to do today is, I'm still going to introduce you into the form of, what is it to be a sacred storyteller? And what is that art form? But I'm also really going to get into what is it to be a conscious creator in our time? How do you open your channel to listen to your individual genius and make a space for it in your life? We're going to play with, what is your apocalyptic archetype? We're going to overview, the spoiler, like the whole time we're kind of really walking around story and looking at what is it to work with story, to collaborate with story as a tool for transformation. And then for those of you who are interested, so I'll give you guys lots of things to do throughout our time together. And then for those of you who are interested, I'm going to tell you about an upcoming class that I've got coming up called Sanctuary. And then for those of you who stay at the very end, we're going to do what I think is one of the most important things we can do as a group, which is to create a vision story. So a little bit of introduction to me. Oh gosh, you don't need to look at that. So I'm just gonna, oh gosh, you know what? I'm just gonna escape from all of this. Hold on. It's a new webinar. So a little bit about me is that, I grew up on a farm in Vermont. I was very lucky. My parents spotted the genius in me very young, and they really cultivated my love of storytelling through writing and theater. And I got to participate in professional theater companies at a very young age, and went straight into actually into the world of acting in New York City. I skipped college and went straight there. My parents said, don't waste your time and our money on college if you know what you want to do is acting. So I lucked out in the sense that I was introduced to a lot of master teachers at a very young age. And I learned a lot of things about storytelling. One is the responsibility of storytelling. Now, what you put out into the world will come back to you. And I learned that because one of the very first professional plays that I ever produced was, it was a play that I wrote that was brought into a young playwriting festival. It was about my best friend's suicide. And I was 16. I didn't know how to process or metabolize that kind of grief or that kind of sense making. And I took it to the form that I knew, that I understood, which was writing. And I understood that, while we can tell a story and it will metabolize our grief, it will give an expression to that, which does something amazing, right? We can take the most horrific things and create forms of beauty and forms that connect others and that can almost enliven others, can bring life to the pain that lives in other people, and thereby connecting us when we share these kinds of things. So it also really taught me the role of beauty in the responsibility of bringing beauty to hard topics, and I'll speak a lot about that in terms of when we work with really hard topics, when we understand ourselves as sacred storytellers, as someone who is just like we did in that breathing exercise. We breathe in, and then we give it back, right? And as storytellers, we could be like, I breathed in all this life experience, and now I'm going to metabolize it and use it for life force, and I'm going to give it back to you in the form of something that you can carry as a gift. And so, what I learned is that as we put things out, they're going to come back. And I didn't realize that as I shared my grief with the world and my sense making, other people would then bring back their grief and their sense making back to me. I went on to really follow my love of environmental protection and social justice, and ended up getting a wilderness a degree in outdoor experiential education and wilderness leadership, and worked with youth at risk in the wilderness for a long time. And I would say that's where I really learned the skill of listening. That by listening, it's like that storytelling is the greatest illusion, because storytellers are actually the best listeners. And it was in that place that I really came to a place of listening to what was beyond my years, and by getting to spend that much time so close to the land, and so close to young people who are in their greatest truth-speaking years, I would say. I went on to get a master's in social work, where I learned community building and systems development, and ended up working with Al Gore on a big project on getting people of different political perspectives to speak out, really trying to, how can we bring different people together while celebrating their differences around politics. And then went on to produce the Green Channel at his television network. Long story short is that I took all that and I realized, wow, working in climate change, I thought that it was news and information that was what was going to get people into activation. And I learned the hard way that it's really story. And that gave me permission to come back to what is my true genius, and really working with story as a transformational tool, and working with story, not just kind of with us, but also in allyship with the divine, and through ritual and ceremony. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about that. I guess I'm just totally coming out to you guys today. So let us thanks, Shay. So I like to begin with just some of the oldest wisdom, in terms of what's real, and that, to me, it comes from so many of the ancient traditions. So the Hawaiians believe and understand that words are so powerful that they can raise enough energy to slow the world or to set it into motion. If you ever have an opportunity just to go on YouTube and get to see, traditional hula chants, you understand that this is a culture that has not lost relationship to their indigenous ways, and who still understands and has carried forth the power of their word and the power of their prayer. And it is something, there's a transmission that you get to see when you really watch that. Not the version that's been, taken over by tourist entertainment, but the true practice of it, which could be combined. I don't want to get myself into trouble by comparing things right now. Okay, so I just did. Sicilians say that that words are so powerful that that they can poke holes in the universe. So think about the last time you got into an argument and you got so heated and couldn't control what you said, and now you can't take it back. The Australians say that the stories from the past must be sung to the present so that the future can exist. And so what do we understand about the Australians, with their relationship to song lines right into the earth that hold their stories? And the Maori say that words don't describe the things, that the words are the things. So all the ancient religions agree that the world was sung, spoken, and chanted into existence. I just want to say that again because it kind of blows my mind every time I say it. That all the ancient religions agree. This is some of the oldest, wisdom that we have on the planet in terms of what gives us a little indication, keys to our unique role here, which is that the world was sung, spoken, and chanted into existence. So abracadabra, abracadabra, the original orientation of that word. That's from the ancient Aromatic mysticism. And it means I create as I speak. So when we think about who are some of the most powerful people on the planet, here we are. It's storytellers. So, okay, here we go. I'm going to go back into the realm of this pretty little webinar that I made for you guys. Okay, so I'm going to ask you guys some questions, and these are real questions. And so I'm going to invite you to speak to them. What is a story? Just what is a story? We're going to go quickly. A lot of you guys have already heard this, so I'm going to go much faster through this section than I normally have. But just let's get to that.
I would say it's like encoded information.
Encoded information. I love that. So you're getting right to that. That the our language has codes in it. And if you go back to the etymology, if you want to be a total etymology geek and go back to different language and different words, all of a sudden we start understanding that so many of the words that we use have been completely hijacked to be used in a way that isn't accurate to their true meaning. So one of my favorite examples of this is apocalypse. I was raised like, oh my God, don't make me live in the apocalypse. It's the end of the world. Well, it's the end of the world as we know it. When you go back to the etymology of it, it means it's the lifting of the veils. It means, oh, you can see what's really here. Oh my gosh. Well, now I'm like, it's a celebration. Wow. Yeah. We get to live in apocalyptic times. Like, how many different versions of reality can we see now all at once? So yes, thank you for that. Any other explanations of what is a story, just so we can get on the same page? Okay, I'm gonna jump in because we've got more things to play with today. So here's what I understand a story is, just so that we can be on the same page. A story is, if we go into understanding that humans often compare themselves to the latest technology. And so if we use that and understand we used to be compared to machines, now computers, let's say that a story is an operating system. And that operating system is a place where we believe, where we learn our belief systems, our values, and what we believe is possible. And they're coming at us, what is that first quote, Rebecca Solnit? They're coming at us from all directions. They come at us from our family members. They come at us from our schools, from our communities, from our country, from the news, from the television. So it's like now you get to be like, oh, okay, there's all these different operating systems and they're all, giving me different belief systems. Well, aren't we in this in the time of COVID? Oh my God, how many stories are there? Which one do you choose to believe? So if we understand that, okay, now what is a sacred story? And I'm gonna go into this because we've got more things to do. Normally I'd ask you, but a sacred story, as I understand it, is that it's a setup, because as soon as you call something sacred, you're inherently, insinuating that something else is not sacred. However, I call on that language because we do not live in a time that is imbued with this idea of seeing a life force in all things. I would say that many people in this society that I participate in has forgotten that way, that indigenous way of seeing the world in an animistic form where everything has life in it. So I call on that language to bring us back to that. And so now we're saying, okay, well then a sacred story has a form of the divine in it. A sacred story is one where I understand that I am, that it has a life force beyond my own. So now it's a collaborative relationship when I'm making a sacred story. If I'm making a story to tell a point because I want you to believe and see how I see the world, that might be a story that's completely structured out of my egoic form. If I want to create a medicine story, from my perspective, and I might want to say, okay, maybe I want to call in some wisdom that's beyond my few years on this planet. So, I might call in this collaborative process, and that collaborative process might come into with a relationship with the divine, or I'm calling it the divine, or it could also be called the creative life force, or the muse, or the ancestors, or the earth speaking out loud. So that's what I'm referring to as we come into this language around sacred storytelling. So here we go. This is what's new for you guys. I'm so excited to get to the new content for you guys. What is an emergent creative process? And I'm just going to invite you guys to really kind of wonder with me, what is the emergent creative process? I might not be able to see all of you as you raise your hands now. Let's see
I would say it's a reveal.
It's a reveal. Can you say a little bit more?
Yeah, I guess I see it as it's like painting the situation in a new way and giving just enough information to see things and act upon them.
Okay. So what I'm going to pick up, the thread that I'm going to pick up in what you're speaking to in terms of how I understand an emergent creative process is, there's something very alive and you're very present to what is here in this moment. And so that's the piece that I'm picking up.
Yeah, it's like plucking something that's ready to be said.
Okay. So you're also speaking to that, like there's an energy force it's like that you're paying attention to. It gets a little bit louder in the room. There's like, it's like sometimes if you're sitting in a group of people and you're getting a little heated, where there's a lot of energy and you're like, I gotta say this, it's coming through. We could say that's part of that is the emergent creative process. Okay. Anyone else want to play with what is the emergent creative process?
Also that when we're really present, then we can tap into our true power, and our true power is not being separate, but our true power is that we are connected. And so there's beings and spirits and all the things that we're connected to that is coming through us. And so it's like 1,000 voices, and having to speak. Oh, hold on for a second and start. Like this one, a lot of voices going through. So as I really see that we're a ceremonial vessel in that way. Opening, sharing.
Yeah, and and what I'm hearing is that it's like, right, when we're alive to that life force that's outside of ourselves, that when we're participants, and that when we're listening so much, that channel is open, that when that voice that comes through, and it's like it's also engaged in the act of eloquence, right? So it's like we hear something, it wants to come through us, and maybe we don't even know exactly what it is, but we are in this. To me, there's a relationship with intuition, with knowing when it's your turn to speak. And sometimes it's not from it's not like I'm going to blow up because I'm so angry. That's a different thing. But when it's like there's something really alive that wants to come through you, which Grace was speaking to, when that life force outside of us is saying, oh, there's a channel that I can speak through. Woof, coming on through. Okay. Anyone else want to speak to what is the emergent creative life force, or the emergent creative process? Yes, DB. Oh, we can't hear you.
Here we go. The bubbling up of ideas or expression that is wanting a voice.
Say that one more time.
A bubbling up of ideas that is wanting a voice, a way of expression.
Okay. Right. This again, there's something in that needs to be expressed. It's coming forth and coming alive. I like speaking about the emergent creative process because it's one that is an advanced skill that is so easy, it's ridiculous, but it is an advanced skill. And, you know, all of you who've spoken have touched on the pieces of it. It's this real attunement to listening, to hearing something outside of you. And to me, it's the distinction between my ego mind wants to make a point. My ego mind wants to tell a story and get you on my side or get a perspective, versus there's something in our field. There's something that's wanting to come through right now. There's something in our expression that is coming alive in our alchemy. And what is it? And so I talk about it because this emergent creative life force, I feel like, is one of the, it's one of the core navigational skills that I understand, especially going through chaotic times. And chaotic times is kind of, you know, it's like, chaos is like the super friend of the creative, right? Because life is born from chaos. So if you identify and you understand, if you claim that archetype of I'm a creator, then when chaos comes, if you're not, if you're just going to be a leaf blown around by the chaos, then chaos can be very scary, right? But if you say, okay, who am I? What is my role in this story? No matter what happens, and if I'm a creator, then chaos, chaos, you know, now if I'm a creator, I know that in chaos, my job is to navigate based on what is in the emergent creative life force. Like what is the emergent creative process? Because the emergent creative process will always guide you towards where the life is. So I say that both, you know, in the combination of storytelling, because when we're creating stories, and I just got to be part of one of the most extraordinary creative processes of my life with a group from the last Speak the Spark class. This was the advanced group that took on telling the story of Medea in the form of a story ceremony. And we went in for one of the deepest listens for why is this old ancient story coming forward at this time, asking to be told, and what is it offering to give us as medicine of the times that we're living in? And we fought for that story. And sometimes that's what it looks like when you step in, because it's, you just keep digging and you keep listening and you keep feeling in your body where the truth is. And we had someone in our group, Gloria, who just could not be quiet. She could not still and find peace in how we were telling the story. And what I understand with that kind of collaboration is you have to trust those people who are sticking out and that can't find peace and who are willing to speak it. You know, they're playing a really important part. They've got some trickster energy, some coyote. Comes sometimes they feel like the fool, or there's the pain in the ass. Excuse my language. But when you're in a creative process, and you know that you're here with an intention, and someone can't find peace, it's because there's something that wants to come through them, and there's something that is feeding what you're creating as a group. And so for Gloria, she ended up uncovering one of the most powerful parts of our story. And we came into a big question, and I'll just leave this for you to write down and play with another time, is what spell are you under? What spell, what collective spell are you under? You know, I think we're peeling away the story of consumerism, the spell of consumerism. You know, it's like there's so many different spells that are among us, and I invite you just to keep wondering, what spell are you under? Okay. So that's a little bit about the creative emergent life force. So hold on, I lost the webinar. It's all fun and games until you lose your script, and then it's just freewheeling. Okay, so now I want to ask you guys, you know, what is imagination? You know, I'm going to ask you a couple questions, and some of you are going to ask, you know, feel inclined to answer different things. You know, but what is imagination? And I'm also going to ask you guys, what does it mean to be a creator? Yes, Trish.
I am going to answer, hopefully, the one, what does it mean to be a creator? And my thoughts on that is that when you're creating, you are closest to source than ever before in your life.
Mm. Okay, love that. You're creating closest to source. Beautiful. Anyone else want to take a gander? What is imagination? What does it mean to be a creator? DV. It's fun to see you guys from Love Medicine in here today.
I know. What is imagination? And I wrote it's the ground of creation.
It's what?
It's what? The ground of creation.
Oh, the ground of creation.
The groundwork of creation.
Okay. Love that. Anyone else want to take a gander at these? Yes.
It's a sense of, my sense is that it's a something out of nothing. It's kind of an emergence of when I get out of the way, a flow of something through me that is novel.
I love that idea of getting out of the way of flow. Can we put it, say, like going into flow? Okay. So, here's the thing about imagination and creativity. Imagination, nobody knows where it comes from. It's like a total freaking mystery. And it's like it's a really, like, for all the time and all the space that we've been trying to uncover the mysteries of the world, it's like no one's been able to put their finger on and define what imagination is. They can see how it moves in our brain. They can see how it activates us. But it's really being able to see what can't be seen or known. And I would even say that it's possibly one of the most important muscles that we have, that actively really working out our imagination every single day could be one of the best disciplines that we have, especially in a world where, it's like, I understand it, if you're not writing a story, you could very well end up get caught up in someone else's story and playing a role that you didn't even want to play. So when we live at this time when there's so many stories about where we're going, what our future holds for us, it's like all these images have been planted into our minds that inform our imagination, and our imagination is going to inform the stories that we tell, and our stories that we're going to tell are going to inform what roles that we play in those stories. And then if we're not careful, we're going to actually make those stories that perhaps we most didn't want to ever happen come into fruition. So this is where we go back to that really beginning first quote, in terms of if you can see a story, if you can name a story, and then if you can also get your reins on your own imagination and say, wait a second, what's the world I most want to see? What's the story I most want to give? What's the medicine that I'm participating in creating? And then it comes back to this idea of, oh wait, what does it mean to become a conscious creator in these times? Especially, what does it mean to be a conscious creator in chaotic times? Again, chaos is the gift of the creator. It's like there's so much to choose from. It's like that the way that I see being a creator is that I love what someone here said. It's close to creator. It's it's the language that we use for God. So what is it to be that being who can see the unseen? That who the muse speaks to. And I think we're all this beings. Just some of us pay more attention than others. And some of us to cultivate a relationship with it. And so what is it to then be able to not only see it, but to choose what you choose to feed? It's like we all see the nightmare stories, but do we choose to cultivate them and make them into horror films? Noticed a couple of people choose to do that, but do you choose to say, wait, what's the world I most want to live in, and commit yourself to creating that vision and medicine and doing that? So again, coming back to this greater topic of what does it mean to be a conscious creator? What does it mean to have the reins on your imagination and be really aware of what you're giving your life force energy to? So now we come back to this thing, this great word, and I love this word because it just scares the heck out of people. So I'm gonna do it, and I'm gonna celebrate it, because Michael Mead has done so much great work about bringing this to us, which is, what is genius? You know, and genius, I love the way that that Michael Mead speaks to it, which is, you know, he says, how does a person find stability and grounding in a world growing more and more chaotic? And many of the most troubling questions in life can be found by turning towards one's true purpose in life, which is your inner genius. And each person carries a unique way of seeing the world. It is this rich diversity of perspectives and styles and talents and aptitudes that is the greatest resource we have as a global community when it comes to facing our greatest challenges. I always think about that when people say I'm colorblind. I'm like, what do you mean you're colorblind? It's like you're not just seeing what's in front of you, you know, and you're not celebrating the beauty and the difference that's in front of you, you know. And I love this piece of the genius that we all each have this unique, special gift that is just ours to give. And it's like when you go out into the forest and all this, we need all that diversity in the ecosystem to be thriving. It creates an alchemy that's truly unexplainable. So, you know, this idea that rather than seeing each person as coming into the world as empty, you know, what Michael Mead is saying is that each of us already is someone, we already carry important gifts to give the world. There's something seated in each of us waiting to be awoken, ready to lead us on the path to our true identity and our true purpose in life. So I mention that because, you know, sometimes one of the easiest ways to find our way into our genius, people say, oh, I'm not genius. And I'm like, oh my gosh, of course you're genius. You know, it's like you have the genius inside of you, that piece of inspiration, that piece of joy, that thing that comes so easily to you. You know, I think people, so oftentimes people get confused because our world doesn't celebrate all the different kinds of intelligences or give them a place to exist and be celebrated. You know, so one quick way, if you're sitting there, you know, some of you said, oh yeah, I know what my genius is. You know, it's like, hands down, I know what my genius is. And it might be making beauty. You know, some of it might be you have got a way with words. Some of it might be, you know, gardening, or some of it might be kindness, like true, authentic kindness to all beings and seeing the beauty in all people. Those are all a form of genius that can be activated in all different kinds of ways. So one quick way that if you want to play with it is, what are your earliest memories about what brings you joy and bliss? You know, I think that is one way to find your way into your genius. So I'm not going to read this quote, but I did want to ask you, you know, I want to talk about, first we talk a little bit about how do we work with story as a transformational tool. And by now, if you haven't figured out what this webinar is doing, is I'm throwing out a lot of different kinds of things. I'm acting totally like creating the web of connection. You know, they say the storyteller is a spider. And so you're connecting all these different pieces on the web. And so I'm throwing out lots of dots, and we will collectively start to connect them. But working with story as a tool for transformation. And one of my quickest, funnest way to show you guys how to do that is to transform someone who's acting like a monster in your life into a master teacher. And we do this in some of our classes as an actual story practice, but you can always do this. You can do this very quickly right now. So, you know, transforming the monster. So someone in your life that's an absolute pain, someone who's causing you grief and upset. You know, it could be the angry neighbor that won't ever, you know, give you any peace. It could be a certain political leader. It could be anything. Someone that really feels like you have cast them in the role of the bad guy. And so now you're going to transform, you're going to create some alchemy, and you're going to say, well, what would it be if I made them not the bad guy? What if I put them in a different role in the story and I made them my master teacher? And so now I don't have to be in this constant conflict energy with them. Now I can actually change my relationship to where, oh my gosh, they've come to give me a great gift. And all of a sudden, the way that you relate to them completely changes. And they're giving me a new way of living in the life, a different kind of practice. So one of the ways you might ask is like, oh, what's the gift that they're here to give you? And one of the quickest, easiest ways to kind of get to that gift, where you're like, my neighbor is not giving me any gifts, he's just giving me hassle. Because of, well, what latent strengths are they calling out in you to be activated? Are they asking you to learn about boundaries? Or are they asking you how to develop deeper listening skills? Or are they asking you to engage your compassion? How can you be in a relationship where you get out of the right and wrong, but there's another way of relating to them? So the other thing that I love about, when we recast these monsters into our master teachers, what part of your own shadow are they shining the mirror on? And that you can almost get to see more of yourself and have a larger expression of yourself by seeing. That's a really quick way of looking at how to work with story as a transformational tool. And so if we were in a class, we'd actually go write the story, it's really fun when you get to do that. The other thing that I like to play with people right now is, again, I'm just giving you a lot of different skills to just look at things differently. And as we talked before about, if you're not writing the story, then someone else might end up in someone else's story. And so what would it be right now what is your apocalyptic archetype? This is a really fun game to play. So, it's looking at the metaphor of your natural gifts, of your genius. So when we look at that, apocalypse, again, we know it's the lifting of the veils. So who are you in the time of great transition and transformation on the planet? Are you a gardener? It turns out I'm a gardener. All I can do is plant seeds. I'm going to plant seeds in my garden. I'm going to plant seeds through the stories that I tell, through the vision stories that I create. It's like I'm going to tend to all those seeds. That's my metaphoric expression. What's a metaphor? But it's the language of spirit. So we're kind of looking at the metaphor of how you be through all the different parts of your life. Are you the goddess of love? And you are really just there to hold a loving presence for all beings. I think so many people are coming into I just want to know how to tune into the world right now and be of purpose and give something, and I think when we come back to what is our truest essence, and then find a way for that to come through every single thing that we do, we know that we're playing a role in the times that we're living in, because we're playing a role in the times we're living in every time we go to the post office, every time we drive down the street. It doesn't have to be on the front pages of newspapers to have a great, massive impact. So if you want to keep playing with what's your apocalyptic archetype, there's bridge builders, right? There's doorways, there's visionaries. Does anyone want to play with speaking to? Does anyone get me inspired in terms of saying what your apocalyptic archetype is? As you speak it, you inspire other people, so it's always fun. And the less you think about it, the easier it is.
I'm the nothing doer and dreamer.
The nothing doer and dreamer. Well, those are two different archetypes, just so you know. The dreamer is a very active role. The dreamer is it's
okay, in appearance, a nothing doer. In appearance, like a nothing doer, but very active dreaming.
Great, so you're a dreamer, and to hold the dream.
Unemployed dreamer.
The unemployed dreamer. Well, now the unemployed, isn't that great? Because you all of a sudden you've categorized the name of your role in the shape of, in the reflection of what our world, values, right? We say, in many of the structure, if you're employed, you're valuable, but it's like, wait, what if we just kind of rewind and be like, oh my gosh, so your archetype is the dreamer. The dreamer is the deep listener. That dreamer is the fertile ground where visions are planted. The dreamer is not really received very often in our culture. It's like not many, I don't know a lot of gigs that are like, would you go dream for me? The dreamers could be storytellers, because it's like you catch the dream and tell them. So it's like, you might want to keep going. It's like, are you sharing your dreams? You have a way to express them. Sometimes when we're dreamers, there's just a time of listening, but you're also holding a certain kind of fertile ground. So fecundity. So thank you.
I appreciate your valuation of it, because I appreciate your recognition.
Yeah. Not everyone knows how to dream, especially in a society where we're not taught that we're allowed to do that. And it's like the dreamers are the ones that change the world. So, anyone else want to play at your, yes, Mary.
Here I am. I am the feeder of men. I live with 3 men, and my job during this lockdown has been to hunt and gather the food at the local IGA, wearing my superhero mask, and I make the food and I feed the men, and hopefully I also am the feeder of hope.
I love that. So, it's like you are the priestess of nourishment, or, it's like, I like having fancy titles for these because I grow into them. You're like, oh, yes, and I think also that piece that we've lost touch with, which is, actually, my housemate is doing an amazing project in the world, and I will often feed him, and I'm like, I'm feeding that work in the world, and it makes me like realize that we're all connected when we understand the greater value, the greater ripple effect. So, yeah.
But also on the other side, it's the feeding of resilience and the feeding of hope that we're going to get through this, that we're in this together. When people ask me how I'm doing, I say literally a bunch of stuff, but I always try and find the silver linings, and that helps them find their silver linings. So it's nice, figuratively. Okay, I'm done.
Thank you. I love that. I think that right, the feeder of nurture and hope, that is such a massive role to claim, especially when we're in a world when it's not easy, so to choose your navigational, your compass goes on, my true north is on hope and on what was the other word that you said? Hope and
Resiliency.
Again, it's like your archetype, what path you're on. I'm always, whatever's going to happen, I'm always going to work on resiliency and hope, and it's like, it just gives you that focus, the action to take. Okay. I encourage you to play with this. I encourage you to have fun with it. I encourage you to make up fantastic names. And I think, and that it can also be like an archetypal energy that you create, and notice, what's an archetypal energy, but it's a universal form. But it can also be someone that you really call on. You can be like, what, I'm going to call on Artemis today. I need that fierce strength of protector to come into me, and give me a little extra energy, so it's like, how do you cultivate those kinds of relationships? I am going to show you just one last thing in terms of skill building today. And this is about making beauty. Like,
can I ask a question?
Of course.
Is it possible for someone to be more than ask now, or wait? I'll wait. It's okay.
Oh no, how can you be more than one? Of course you can. Please be more than one.
I am both a dreamer, a gardener, a feeder, very active. So someone can do all of them. I'm not like talking very well about myself, but I know that I have a great garden that I have started just this year. I feed 2 men, a man and a kid at home. I work, and I'm very active. And at the same time, I dream a lot of dreams about doing better and being greater in the life.
Thank you for claiming all of that. And I think that the reason why I love it when people speak is because you inspire everybody. It's like we you're like, oh yeah, I'm more than one of those things too. And I think that it's what do we understand about archetypal energies? But we have many different things living and existing in us: the light and the shadow, all the I hate using good or bad, but the good or the bad, and they're all existing in us. And then which ones do we choose to feed? Which ones do we choose to call out? And Godspeed, maybe we have a lot more than 1 or 2 or 3 or 4. So I think you just gave us a list of 8, which I love. So thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. I'm going into our back over here. Okay, so one more skill building piece, which I just love, which is around creating beauty. And I'm really kind of struck right now about how much we need beauty in the world right now, especially when we're seeing so many things that are hard to look at, so many things that are hard to take in, and as storytellers, our role of bringing beauty. And the reason, what do they say, that beauty is what feeds the soul. So you can tell people a really hard story. You can lead them to the trough to make them see the hardest things that there are to see about life that we all want to avoid. But when there's beauty embedded in the story, our soul can't help but be nourished in the expression of it. And so one of the ways, and I really feel like, as a creator, and as a conscious creator, it's like, how many ways do you get to feed the divine and those around you in all forms, sentient and the seen and unseen worlds, through the act of making beauty? And so we can do this through stories that we tell. We can do this through our songs. We can also do this through making altars. And so I always tell people, a lot of people come to me and they're like, well, I want to start a creative project, or I want to do something, but I can't figure out what it is. And, my first response is, well, create an altar. Because when we create an altar, we focalize our attention and we make a commitment to, we start feeding that divine, that creative life force. We start feeding the muse. And it also feeds our commitment. So when you have flowers, when you have candles, when you have incense on your altar that needs tending, it's every time you go towards it, it's like a reminder, oh, right, I am making the stake to be a sacred storyteller, or to be in my creative life force, or to be a conscious creator in our times. So one of the things that I wanted to introduce you to is this idea of making an altar, but also a morning page. And that morning page, it would be, whoops, sorry, I'm going to actually show it to you. Oh my gosh. Did I not? There we go. Morning page is what is your life force energy want to do today? This is that emergent creative process. So this would be like creating a daily practice for, what does my life force energy want to do today? So it might say, I don't want to go to one meeting. All I want to do is go in the garden. And that hearing that, because I feel like also this is your key to unlocking your keys to your unique genius, because it's saying, where is the life in all these crazy times? What does your life force want to do? You might not be able to do that. You might actually have to sit in front of your computer and answer five hours of emails. But when you do this every single day, you're going to start to see a pattern. And as you start to see a pattern, you're going to start to understand, what else is in there. So I give that to you guys. So that's our class for today. For those of you who just came and wanted to play with this idea of what is your creator matrix, it's like what I explain in terms of what is the creator matrix. It's an opportunity of understanding the codes of what you're made of. It's a mathematical term, this word matrix. And so when we start to really understand what are we made of, what are the stories that make us, how does our operating system work? What is our true inspiration? That thing that is so easy, we can't believe that anyone would be interested, but it comes through us like water. It's like that most joyful, easy thing. Those are our gifts right there. How do we call that out? So I do know John Young. Thank you, Fred. I don't know the 512 elements though. And is there a slide about the archetypes? You know what, I didn't actually define them for you, because I really wanted to give you the freedom to define your own archetype in terms of how you are showing up. I think that there's a real power to do that, but you can definitely go look them all up. So if you came for the class and wanted to play at, what is it to be engaged and alive, then that is that. For those of you who are interested in continuing to play and create and enter into the world of sacred storytelling and really get into the depths of what it is to activate your creative matrix, I'm going to now tell you about a program that I have going on. So, and then I'll read you a quote. And for anyone that stays to the very end, we're going to create a vision story together, because it feels like some of the coolest stuff that we can do right now. So I'm going to go back to this little screen because, I created all these pretty pictures for you and I'm just going to use it today. So what we have going right now is a program called Sanctuary. And this is program which is really committed to engaging who you are as a creator. And I've been teaching storytelling for, sorry, let me get you to the beginning of the page. I've been teaching storytelling for a really long time, and sacred storytelling specifically. And when I came into, COVID and really started listening, and to me, really listening for what is alive and what is what the emergent creative life force want from me right now, this program came alive, and it came through in one of the most inspired acts that I've ever been a part of. And it really goes back to the beginning with, again, if you don't understand the stories that make you, if you don't understand your unique code as a creator and what you need to thrive as a creator, then you might not ever experience a full liberated expression of it. And I love this game of liberation and the liberated expression of the truth of what we are and giving the most amount of our gifts to the world. So, to me, this really comes through, the avenue that I teach a lot is through storytelling. This class in particular is geared towards all creators of anything. And then it will wind into a bigger program that's focused on telling stories. The thing that's unique about this course is that I've been really committed to engaging the technology, all of that, but it is technology, the ritual prayer and ceremony. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about how we're going to do that. And a lot of this starts in 6 weeks, starting on June 30th. We're going to meet once a week on Tuesdays, and then we have an amazing slew of guest speakers. So the way that we do this is unlike any other class that I've ever taught, which is, I'm just going to talk to you about, to take you down to here, which is you're going to get to have an embodied practice of learning and experiencing yourself as a creator. And as we talk about this idea of creating, sacred stories and creating ritual and creating a sacred space and clearing our channel so that we can, especially in the mess, the chaos of the world, be present for that emergent creative life force, right? Then how do we do that? And the way that I understand how to do that is through creating psychic silence. And psychic silence was a term that I created. I used to go away on, these 3 months writing retreats while writing this really big book. And I needed to get away from the world, and I needed to create this kind of a buffer. And it was sort of like a round of my head around for psychic silence. And I went through this really specific strategy and technique of creating it. And some students from the last class asked if I would create the guidebook. So at the beginning of COVID, I sat down to write the guidebook. And then I discovered that in order to write the guidebook, I would actually have to create sacred silence in my own home. And what I understand is that, how you relate to matter matters. Matter takes up energy, and it also puts off energy. And your bedroom is a place where your dreaming happens. And you want your dreaming to be in a clear, protected space. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to transform our bedrooms into a sacred sanctuary. And you're going to get to go through the whole experience of what it is to clear out and clean out all the clutter, and to redesign and create beauty, and to what is it to step into creating a temple on this earth right now, that where you are the temple keeper. So, and as you commit yourself to what it is to be a sacred storyteller or a conscious creator of our time. So, and what I understand about that practice is that the way that you do anything is the way that you do everything. So that means that, are you a starter? Are you one of those people that can start a project, no problem, but you can't finish for the life of you? Or are you someone that is really sloppy and can't do organized? Or can you not start until everything's organized absolutely perfectly? And so by the end of this course, you're going to actually really have your personal A to Z guide on who you are as a creator, what makes you as a creator, what breaks you as a creator, and what you need to thrive. And so that means as a storyteller or in anything else. So as part of the course, you get this 70-page beautiful book called A Creator's Guide to Psychic Silence. I'm so delighted that the designer that worked with this created such a beautiful job in that page that I showed you before about your dream day comes from her. And it's like what you're going to get is a step-by-step process for what it is to clear your channel and to really understand what are the limiting and liberating thought patterns. And that's going to come through the process of working with the Psychic Silence Guidebook. You're going to learn core principles of what it is to create prayers and blessings, and integrate ritual into your metabolizing process. So when we find things, when we find the rough things that are in our way and the barriers to the process of this project, when we come back together in class each week, we're going to work with that by working with story as a transformational tool. And we're also you're going to have an opportunity to develop specific rituals for you to collaborate with the earth, to metabolize the learning, and to really transform that energy. And to me, that's one of the most exciting parts about this class. Just, meditations and prompts to open your creative channel. You're going to be inspired by articles and podcasts and books that I'm going to send you all along the way. And I'm going to invite you to learn new systems to reveal, and then how to play with all those old stories and patterns and unconscious belief systems, which I already talked about. You're going to learn rituals for cleansing and clearing and anointing and healing and forgiving and addressing wounds with both the masculine and the feminine. And you're also going to get to play as an advanced skill in a supportive community that is gathered at this unique moment in time. And to me, that's kind of a really, I love being in class at this time, because we are so alive to what's happening in the world and so alive to our role in it. So to me, it's a powerful time to be in community. I mean, it's always a powerful time to be in community, but community with purpose and intention. So here's what I understand: what you create creates you. And I know that through all aspects of life. So basically what this workshop includes is you receive 6 live interactive classes with me. And these are much more interactive. I will never talk this much in an hour. You guys get to really get in there and do things and play and work in small groups and share, and it's really fun. You get to have 5 extra classes with our guest master teachers. And I'm about to tell you about them, because these people, this is my dream come true. You get the Psychic Silence 70-page downloadable PDF guidebook that you'll work with. And I'll show you in just a little bit. The reason why it's not a printed book is because it's actually designed to inspire your wild creativity. And some of the pages are designed to be pulled out and put on your walls so you can work in a really emergent creative process. You get a small private group that will, they're your cheerleaders, your accountability partners. They're the people that really call out your greatness, and you get to watch and witness the progression of others as you go along. And then guided meditations and creativity practices. You get a private Facebook group to help with the momentum. And then if you ever miss a class, you always get the recordings of all the classes. So there's that. So, and that is $350 for a 6-week class. And then for those of you who say, okay, right, that idea of like, we go in, take that deep breath, we receive, right? That's what sanctuary is. We're going in, and then there's the exhale. We give back what we discovered. And so after sanctuary comes a 4-week class called Mythos. And this is where we've figured out what our creator matrix is. We understand what our creator archetypes are. And now we go in for 4 weeks just to work on one story. And that is about what is our personal creation myth. You'll have an opportunity to create it, to write it, to share it, and then to tell it. So I'm really excited. So for those of you who want to take those classes and sign up at the same time, there's a reduced rate of, I think you get $50 off. And then for those of you who, I think that's the big question. I'm going to answer all your questions at the end. And then you can sign up for them separately, just so you know. So here's our guest teachers, and I am just like crazy excited about our guest teachers. There is Diana Dubrow, who is holding some of the most ancient knowledge about working with scents and oils, and specifically anointing. And she's going to tell us some of the ancient stories about anointing, and she's going to really help you prepare yourself to, how do you prepare yourself to hold sacred space, and prepare others? How do you anoint yourself and anoint others? You're going to get a class with Elaine Kalila, who runs the Priestess Presence Temple, and she will talk about what is it to be a temple keeper. And right now you might be scratching your head and you're like, what are these teachers doing in the creator class and the storytelling class? I don't get it. And to me, this is what I understand. Sacred stories are a temple. They are a safe place that other people can rest within. They're a place that can give people a refuge when we give our stories as gifts. And so what is it to really prepare yourself inside out to hold this role in the world? we're going to get to meet with Brooke Medicine Eagle, who is extraordinary. And she's one of the first people that has brought some of the indigenous knowledge to white people. She wrote a beautiful book. And she's going to bring us into traditions of, you know, really understanding what is ceremony, what is ritual, how do you do this work. You're going to get to, this is really fun, you're going to get to sanctify your space with your own sacred symbol. Kristen is a beautiful visionary artist, and we're going to have an extra 3-hour class where you get to be led through a creative drawing practice where you create your own specific unique symbol. And then with, we're also going to meet with the lovely Alika Atai, who is a farmer, an indigenous farmer in Maui, carrying forward the old ways, and he's going to teach us about spiritual gardening. And once again, you're like, what? Gardening? Like, are you kidding me? What is this doing here? But some of our rituals that we're going to do actually include planting seeds. And as storytellers, we're always planting seeds. So it's as within, so without. The metaphors are embodied. This class comes with a ritual kit that you can purchase in addition or not, but it's highly recommended to get this along with your class because it has all the tools. And you can gather these tools on your own, but we gathered all these tools for you, and they're going to be integrated into the class. And Brittany, who created this just for based on our curriculum. So really excited for that. And I'm not going to get, I think I've told you guys enough for now, right? I think we did that part. The other thing I would just, speak to is, maybe I'll just answer any questions if you have any questions. So is Kristen's asking, if you can't attend live, can you still participate in the class? And absolutely, you can still be in a small group. You can watch the videos in your own time. Sometimes we have people, a lot of times we have pretty good international groups. And so that's why I run the class at 10 a.m. in the morning, so we can get as many people at that time as possible. But I'm just wondering what is happening here. I'm noticing that you're not seeing, something's not working. I don't know what's going on. Okay, well, apparently you can't see me, but we're here. Anyway, what I would say is that it's much more fun to participate live. You get that personal interaction, and you get to have, you get the personal touch of, if you're working with something, you get to have personal contact. But if you can't attend live, then you can still meet with your groups, and you can still watch the classes, and you can still fully do it and be part of the Facebook groups. So I don't ever like to say it's the same, because it's not the same, but it's absolutely wholeheartedly possible, and you can have that live group. What time on Tuesdays? It's going to be at 10 a.m. on Tuesdays. Any other questions? Okay, that's fine, Kristen. 10 a.m. where? Right here. It's on Zoom. So we participate on Zoom. And again, what I would say is that the classes are far more interactive and participatory. And I realized I should give you guys the link so that you can just go check it out. And what I would say is that, yes, it's Pacific time. And that as soon as, once you register, the first assignment is right there. So while we don't start until the 30th, the time is now to begin. And so one of the things that we'll be doing to begin is, as I would invite, everybody to do that first exercise that I gave you in terms of what does the emergent creative life force want from me today? If you take the class or not, maybe you just want to go do that and start to see what awakes in you. Any other questions? What was the name of the journalist you mentioned at the beginning? Rebecca Solnit. Okay. I am going to, here. I don't know why you can't see me. I'm going to read you guys a quote. Is there any other questions before I head off? Okay. Let me give you guys a quote. It's one of my favorite quotes in the world. And here we go. Okay, there we go. Act as if you are a people of consequence, so that I can treat you as such and that you matter. What must have happened to people who unconsciously agreed that the best presence in this world is to have no consequence in this world? I'm just going to read that again because it always blows my mind. What must have happened to people who unconsciously agreed that the best presence in this world is to have no consequence in this world? It's a velvet gauntlet, this idea of being of consequence. It doesn't clink when it hits the ground, but you can feel it. It would be proper to proceed that there is consequence to us being here. So I leave you on that note for today. And if you have any more questions, you know where to find me. And you've got the link. And I wish you all the best. I'll take us all off mute and we can all say farewell together. I would, except that it's not letting me do it. Come on. Ah, there we go. Now you're off. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Leah. That was awesome. Woohoo!
That was really good. Thank you.
Oh, good. Thank you.
Yeah.
Have a great day.
Thank you.
Good
See you tomorrow, everybody.
Yes, see a bunch of you tomorrow. Looking forward to it. Okay. Bye.
Bye.
Take good care.
You too.
Leah, do you do private coaching?
I do. I do. What I do is, I don't know why I can't see you for some reason. Sorry, I'm just trying to see you. Okay, it's not gonna let me. What I do is I work with people one-on-one, and I do different kinds of things. One of them is called Sacred Story Priestessing, where I really work with you in terms of what you're creating and really work with that emergent creative process. And then I also have an advanced program for people that really want to get into the depths of all the storytelling, sacred storytelling work that gives you opportunity to get that one-on-one work along with all the extra storytelling work, which is the libraries and all that kind of good stuff. What are you looking for?
Yeah. Your bandwidth disappeared there.
Oh. I can still see you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'm definitely considering maybe perhaps investing in a coaching relationship with you. I personally don't feel like that program that you mentioned is where I need to be right now. But I definitely have some diamonds to shine, if you might say. Yeah, and that I'm kind of, I'm in the process of uncovering, I suppose. But where could I reach you? By email, I suppose, is the best way?
Yeah, so if you want to do info@leahlamb.com,
Okay.
that's the